I know you got thick skin, but this is,
Yeah,
I feel like an asshole doing this,
it's okay.
but it's out there. Allison, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on such short notice here. Your episode that just released has certainly garnered some attention. It kind of did what I was hoping it would. You're already in the top 10% of my most viewed YouTube videos.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
there has been a lot of feedback online, the grand majority of it positive. Facebook
Mhm.
specifically, I don't want to say online, but the court of public opinion on that little town square, the digital town square that we're all so addicted to. But I wanted to address a few things on some feedback we've gotten so far. Tell me about Joe Jameson.
Joe Jameson was such a cool guy to work with. He was my first, I guess, full, I would say, friend on the riverfront. Like he really took me under his wing. He taught me everything he knew, and it was on the professional level, on the personal level. About 4 years after I started working with him, I got married up here in Pennsylvania, actually. And Joe and his wife Judy drove 1,500 miles about to come up, and I was outside taking my photos with my wedding party, and I heard, "Get the women and children off the street!" And I looked around, and Joe Jameson came around, gave me a great big old hug, and it was so interesting because pretty much everybody I knew was at my wedding, and they all knew where I worked and they knew what I did, but I don't think they realized that I actually did it until somebody else from the river showed up, and they it kind of clicked for everybody about really what I did. So it changed a lot of the views from my for my friends and family once they met Joe. But he was a great mentor. I miss him every day.
Well, tell me about him. What you know of his career, and I guess the first time y'all met and the relationship you developed.
Well, his career, he was actually he's from the Illinois River, Jameson, from Beardstown, I believe it is. They call themselves the River Rats, and I know his cousin Pat. I got to work with him on the Upper Mississippi. There's a lot of Jamesons around. His great grandmother, I think, actually had one of the first uh, pilot tickets that a woman ever held, and it was just because she was on the boat with her husband so often that she managed to earn her own license in her own right. But he started his first towboat had a paddle wheel on it back decades ago now, half a century, well over. And he was working with his dad, and his dad wanted to teach him everything he knew. Well, Joe he wanted to go down and play cards with the guys, so he managed to get himself off that boat pretty quick, and really stood on his own. He worked his way up to the wheelhouse. He was actually all state in two sports. He was football and I think baseball. And then he went on. He was the first president of the casino boat organization. The casino boats, when they happened on the river, it got big fast, and a lot of people got together and said, if we don't kind of standardize this, something bad's going to happen. It can go off the rails pretty quick. So Joe was the president of that committee that they all got together, kept safety standards up, and really kept everything safe and professional out on the river. And I asked him how he got elected to that spot, and he said nobody else wanted the job, which is just a typical Joe Jameson answer. And he was a man of very few words, but they were very pointed. He'd always, I knew I was stepping out when he would put his glasses down and look at me. He goes, "Girl, don't test me on this." And I said, "Yes, Captain Joe." Uh, Never had to raise his voice, but he was definitely, you could tell that man was on deck. He was amazing to work with.
Any other folks of note that have had as profound an impact on you in your career?
There are a couple. The first captain I really worked under, John Sutton. He is an impressive pilot captain. He taught me a lot. That man, I believe, could quote verse in scripture for CFRs and regulations. He knows his stuff inside out, upright, and what have you. And when he said, "You got it, girl. I think you're doing great," it just it really gives you a lot of confidence. Somebody who's got that much experience and such a reputation on the river can see that in you. He actually gave me, it was an odd bit of advice, but he said, you know, if you're going to do this, the river has to be your life. You have to sit with your home folks and say, it's always got to be the river first if you're going to get an education out here like you need. And honestly, I came home that same trip and sat with my husband, I sat with my family, and we had that heart to heart conversation. And it really saved me a lot of heartache going down, because it's a hard life out there. So they understand what I go through, and they understand if I can't pick up the phone for a couple days, why that is. A couple other people would be Brent Willits. He's the guy that put me in the seat for the first time as a full steersman on the Queen. He works. He's doing some trip work now, but he was with Marquette for a long time. Before that, he was with the Queen, and I think he learned how to drive a towboat before he learned how to ride a bicycle. So he taught me a lot about the Upper Mississippi in particular. I'm excited this time when I go back, I get to do a trip on the upper and see it from a towboat perspective, which is going to be a whole different game than a paddle wheel boat. And then, you know, there's just been so many other people that have been in and out that I think I've worked with about probably 150 or so pilots, captains, mates that come through and they trip, and they all leave their imprint with me. They all um, pass on their information. I find myself very easy to sit there and have sea stories kind of flow in the wheelhouse when I'm up there, and I love it. I always have. I've got a collection of about 15 different bar books from different people that have shared that with me. All the information that I keep close to my heart. I keep it and I have a full gun safe full of all my license paperwork and all my information that I get from these gentlemen. So they've done a lot to help me on my way.
Well, maybe next time you're in that wheelhouse with those sea stories, just have them sign a waiver and you just hit record. I'd love to have that. You could have your own podcast. We'll make that work.
That was actually a thought. I was working with the entertainers, friends of mine there, that we were going to do the Pilot House After Dark with Allison and just go through sea stories. It was interesting.
I had a big plan actually to have a separate podcast called Backwatch or something.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yep.
yeah. Anyway, that hadn't really developed, but if you get something going, I'm happy to help.
There's one funny story I had was I had the River Lorian, Bobby Durham. He was up in the wheelhouse, and he was not super familiar with all the slang terms that people use in the river. So I had managed to slide by another towboat, and I got myself where I needed to be for going up the river. And I said, ha ha. And I didn't think about it before I said it, but I said, ha ha, eat my tater box. And Bobby's behind me. He goes, what did you just say? I was like, oh no, tater box is the back of the boat. And he thought that was hilarious. So
yeah, I'd never heard of that. You mentioned just now you'll be going on the upper. Is this going to be your first trip behind a tow up there?
yes, it will be. Yep. I'll be going out on Tuesday.
The Crimson Gem, or is it a different boat for this trip?
Different boat. It's the Co-op Vanguard I'll be getting on.
When does that trip start?
Wednesday of this week coming up.
Okay, what, today's Sunday? Anyway.
Yeah, a couple days.
Beside the point, let's go back to Facebook here. I'm not going to name any of the naysayers, but at least we'll go through what was said. And you've had some defense. So the first paragraph of feedback reads, I'm not knocking her in any way, shape, or form, but did she deck? I'm not talking about decking on a cruise ship. I'm talking about a line haul vessel. There's a major difference. I'm a firm believer. You need to have a strong understanding of what goes on out on tow and how everything works. What wires do when you're sticking around a bend, things maritime college can't teach. Yes, it's awesome she's made it where she has, but I'm very curious if she climbed the deck ladder at Artco. I know I would have seen her on deck, being that I worked in a hub Artco fleet. I also know there are a lot of people on deck waiting to be steered. Just curious how all of it happened so quickly. I also know that last time she was in the fleet, when kicking loose from the fleet, the crew on deck kicked the wrong string loose. We had to go back and square the string up and get 7 long wired back in. So I have questions.
Okay. Well, to address the first part of that, he's absolutely correct. You have to have a full understanding of what goes out on deck, just like you have to understand completely what's going on in the engine room, and you have to understand completely what's going on in the fleets. That is experience that I'm gaining right now as part of that steersman's program. Uh, what we've done, I have different knowledge than the average steersman coming in. I have running up and down the river. I'm posted. I just am not posted on a tow. But what I do is I sit there with the captain, with the mates, with the watchman, with everybody, and I go through and I make the arrangements on the tow. I make the tow diagram out. We talk through it. If I have any lessons to learn from that, which I always do. We talk through why, what I didn't see or what I should have seen. And, I'm every time I'm getting better. And then I go out on tow with the guys. I see what stress they're going through. I have incredible respect for the physical task that they have out there. And I have actually been out on deck, not on the line barge, but I had a cadet observership on a towboat, the Christine McAllister, which was an ocean going tug. It was a lightering vessel between Staten Island, Connecticut, and out in the anchorage between the ships. And we brought red flag. It was a notch that we went into, and I took the pigeonholes, went up. The light barge went up, checked the lines, checked what the captain asked me to. Walked the length of the tow, and I got to do steering. I got to participate quite a bit. It was eye-opening experience, and it's something that really sparked my interest in pursuing towboating as a career. Now, the other stuff that he mentioned, honestly, I don't have my notes in front of me. I'll probably end up going back and just double checking particulars about what he mentioned, and absolutely going through and reviewing what I could have done better. I am under supervision 100% of the time while I'm up there. The person who's steering me gives me that information, and if there's any way I can get better, I'm always open to that information, to that feedback.
To lighten the mood for a moment here, Joe McKee chimed in and said, as a captain who worked with her for years, learned a lot from her and taught her a lot. I'm proud that she's in the position she's in and look forward to where she's going. This captain gives his full support. Go, Allison. Ignore the haters as always. So who's Joe McKee? How do you know him?
Joe McKee, there was a change in captains on the Queen. Joe McKee came in whilst Captain Brent was leaving us, moving on. And he and I honestly did not see eye to eye when I first met him. He will say that, I will say that. But we have a mutual respect, which grew a great friendship. To this day, if I do something that I'm super proud of, I call him and I let him know, and he does the same with me. He works down. He did a lot of work with turn services. He's between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. That's where a majority of his earlier career started, and he had the license. He worked, I think, on the Belle of Baton Rouge when that was an operating casino boat. He's got a wealth of information below Baton Rouge that really helped me understand what was going on with the smaller fleet boats, and that's an area that is always been a mystery to me until I get to know and talk to all these guys and get their understanding, their experience, and their wisdom. So he passed that on to me. He's a cheerleader. He's just awesome. What I worked with him on, he hadn't really done much of the upper and Ohio rivers, so I have shared my knowledge, what I've gotten from other people with him, so that he can make the best decision he could. going forward, he was great to work with. He taught me a lot about confidence without being cocky. He's got such a great touch with the boat and boat handling and all of that. So he was great to work with.
Think he'd be good for this show?
I think he'd be great for that show. He actually right now, I think he's running the Rose River cruises out of Baton Rouge. They do small tours for passengers through Baton Rouge. He explains a lot of what goes on out in the river to his passengers.
Does he live down here?
He does. Gosh, he lives out just outside of Baton Rouge. I know that. I don't know the exact town, but I think it's close to the Amity River.
Amite River, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, Joe, if you're out there and you want to participate, hit me up. I don't live too far from you. But anyway, let me check back on Facebook here. Hang on. So someone else chimes in and says, "Oh, look, 3 deck crew members put the laughing reaction in this post. I wonder why they're feeling some type of way. Keep up the hard work, young lady. You're doing great." Well, one of the comments that followed was, I think, one of those laughing reactions. That
Yep.
hate to see anybody who never spent a watch building tow telling you how to build one. So tell me about your experience, actual experiences on deck, monitoring these guys, what they're doing, how they're doing it. How is that exchange? How is that training for you?
How that's training. So I do a lot of the knowledge building before I go out there. I go through, I find the diagrams, I find all the definitions. I read up on it as much as I can so I can be as knowledgeable and safe while I'm out there. And then I shadow the deck crew. They've been so nice about passing on their information to me, passing out their knowledge to me. I go out there, I went through with the cheater bar and tightened up tow, tightened up winches, tightened everything up. They explained to me why they were making these certain corrections when they went out there. And it helps give me that connection to what they're doing, their understanding. It's nothing worse than having somebody up with a microphone, not completely aware of what's going on, telling you what you need to do. And I know that that's been part of my conversation since I made the switch over to towboats. It's always been part of that conversation, and it's something I'm constantly working on to get that experience and that understanding and that scope.
I think you're doing as well as could be expected, ma'am. I like the tractor file and I do find it very interesting. And like I said, it's good for my numbers. So
Oh,
thanks again for being a part of this. I know there was some more comments I'm still digging for. So just one second. Okay, the next one I was looking for, I think this is the last one. I can see it now. Hey, Cap, how do you want your tow built? Oh, I don't care, however you want to build it. So the fleet builds tow. You arrive. You built it like that? Deep sigh. It's fine. This was a dig, I think, at more than just you, but do you have any response to that? Because someone named Devin Cooper did chime in and said we've never had a single problem with her in St. Louis.
I didn't see that part, but I appreciate it. Um, Honestly, I'm not one of those people that just, I'm not flippant about anything that happens on a boat. My license is on the wall. When I was on the Queen and the passenger boats, people have a lot of preconceived notions about that, but a bad day, you don't lose your license. You can end up in jail on one of those boats. So you have to know everything that's going on at all time. You have to be aware. You have to have a plan. I don't believe I would ever just say, whatever you want to do. That's not my nature. It's not who I am. And I think that's why I was welcomed into this position. Um, but I do understand that there is that preconceived notion. There is the ability to have somebody like that out there. It's not me. Um, I hope it's never me. I hope I never get that feedback actually out there, but I don't see that happening. But I can understand where they're coming from. I understand their concern. It's valid feedback and it's a valid perspective. But again, it's not something I can see myself doing. You go through, you have a plan, you know what you're going to do, you ask questions. I ask questions to nauseum to everybody that I work with out here. Uh, and it's your license, it's what you're doing, it's your job, it's what you're going to have to deal with. So why would you blow it off with a flippant behavior?
I agree. Thank you for letting me torture you for a few minutes here this afternoon.
I love it. I appreciate it.
We'll
And
keep,
again, I just there's I'm not taking the normal path that a lot of other people have taken, but I'm not the first person to come over from cruise boats to towboats. I've known at least five of them that have done it. I'm just a little bit more public, I guess, about it because I love what I do and I'm excited to be out there doing it.